Okay, so sales, easy to understand, hard to master. And there are concepts that I've starting to analyze and understand in terms of helping people get out of their own way. Because essentially, when you're selling and when you're in sales or in a sales call, your job is to really understand the prospect's current desire, current problems, their current situations, and where they want to go. And sometimes when you hear them and you speak to them, it does not make sense. This is why analogies, framing your questions, as well as active listening are super important when it comes to understanding the prospect and helping them get out of their own way. When I say get out of their own way, it's because sometimes their logic doesn't make sense to you, but it makes sense to them. Hence why they're not achieving their goals and they're asking for help. So after reading 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson, I've collated sections of the book and how it can apply to the sales process and how you can use this to help overcome fear, which is a big component when it comes to people not buying, as well as finances. I'd say those two are the biggest concerns when it comes to people wanting to make a change for themselves, seeking help, as well as going into a service to change their future for the better because they're scared of change. So we'll get started with mindsets. So from this passage of the book, nonetheless, chaos can be too much. You can't tolerate being swamped and overwhelmed beyond your capacity to cope while you are learning what you still need to know. Then you have positioned yourself when the terror of existence is under control and you are secure. But when you are also alert and engaged, that is where there is something new to master and some way that you can be improved. That is where meaning is to be found. From that passage, that's the section when they know there's a problem, they know that they're being comfortable, and they want a better life or they want change. They can appreciate that there needs to be change, and change is supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. So this is why I've highlighted challenge their complacent mindset. They're on the call for a reason because they can't figure out it. They can't figure it out for themselves. Because if they did, they would not be on this call in the first place. I bought many courses, and they're always in the finance niche because I have no idea about finance. But at this stage, will never buy a course about fitness because I have no problems with fitness. So at this stage, you will never see me on a call trying to figure out my fitness or my diet because I don't need that at the moment. To challenge that complacency mindset or that do-it-yourself mindset because they're on the call for help and it's your job to figure it out. The next section of the passage, what must be sacrificed? Small sacrifices may be sufficient to solve small, singular problems, but is it possible that larger, more comprehensive sacrifices might be solved in an array of age and complex problems? All at the same time, that's harder, but it might be better. In the whole entire book, sacrifice was a major theme that was mentioned, and that is something that can be used during the sales call. One, to analyze that their sacrifices that they've been doing thus far isn't good enough. Their time, their energy, and their liquidity, especially if they're not even deploying any liquidity and using free information and not getting anywhere, use that as ammo against them not achieving their 2.0 version or their goals. So sacrifices are necessary to get to the future or to get to their more desired future. And larger sacrifices, in this case, are seen as are better or a perceived larger sacrifice. So paying more for the courses, taking more time and energy to commit to hard work, into learning something completely new. If you're sacrificing free information, that's not much of a sacrifice versus paying someone for mentorship. One, you can get there faster, but it does cost more money. If it was for free, how is that going to challenge your complacency? Because you're not putting anything on the line. Putting skin on the game is a very important idea, that if you're not sacrificing anything, what have you got to lose? Those that pay more money for something are going to put way more effort to try to get that money back, or to get that return on investment back, to lose the weight. The next section I'm going to be talking about is frames and how to frame questions. So framing a question is extremely important. It makes the question so much more better. It keeps them open. Every single frame you're going to see is going to start with a what, why, because we want to keep it open. We don't want any yes or no's. You can structure and sequence your questions to a yes or no, but make sure you back it up with a why or a how, making sure it's open. Again, we're using the same theme of sacrifices, because that is going to be a strong theme to use against prospects who are looking for help, because you can really challenge their ability to sacrifice if they're not sacrificing big enough. Make them understand or build the gap to where their goals are, because they could think that they're sacrificing good, or they're just sacrificing enough. But it's your job as a closer to understand that where they're coming from and the fact that they need help, they're not sacrificing anything to get to where they want. The frame or the question is, what would be the largest, most effective, most pleasing, if of all possible sacrifices that you need to be making? And then, how good might the best possible future be if you made the most effective sacrifice that you made? So this challenges their ability and questions their logic that could be flawed prior to you meeting them on the call. Are they actually sacrificing enough? Are they sacrificing enough time to get to their goal? Are they sacrificing enough energy to get to their goal? Are they sacrificing enough money to get a return on investment that they're looking for? You can use all this to challenge them. Sacrifice is a big deal. There's a difference between sacrificing time and wasting time. Because if you are in the mindset and if you're in the headspace that you're sacrificing, you're getting something in return in the future. But if you're wasting, because they almost sound like the same thing, sacrificing and wasting. Sacrificing is you're burning the short term in order to hope and know that you're setting up the future for the long term. If you're wasting in the short term, there's no future outcome that you're setting up for. Why make an effort if it doesn't improve anything? Meaning itself requires a difference between better and worse. So this is more so a frame to ask them, why are you even on this call in the first place? You really want to use that as the first question to ask them, why do you even want to talk to me? A stranger from across the world, online, what even motivated you to even wake up to want to speak to me? Another way, or another potential client, a prospect you could get, is a sophisticated type A, one-worded answer. They're not convinced that you're convinced that they want to change. So you want to bring that out of them, especially if they're giving you multiple responses where it's one-worded. You just call it out and say, why are you even here? If this is so meaningful for you, why would you jump on a call just to give me these types of responses? My job is here to help you, and it will be extremely difficult for me to help you if you're just giving me one-worded answers. Just call it out. This means we must leave the house ruled by our Father, and confront the chaos of our individual being. So from this passage, it's a lot behind having order, routine, which leads to comfortability. When people want change or a change in behavior or want something better to get to their goals, there has to be a disruption of routine in order to get the change. This is where risk comes involved. Are you willing to risk your routine, your comfortability, and where you are right now in order to get what you want? Because currently, the fact that we are talking, we have to acknowledge that you're not where you want to be. This is a problem you cannot solve by yourself. Are you even willing to go through any hardship to change your behavior to get to your goal? Another passage. If the world you are seeing is not the world that you want, therefore it's time to examine your values. It's time to rid yourself of your current presuppositions. It's time to let go. It might even be time to sacrifice what you love best so that you can become who you might become instead of staying who you are. Challenging the limiting belief, but the most important thing is acknowledging that they have an ego. Even if they're not egotistical, everybody has an ego. And in order for you to change your behavior, you need to be intelligent enough to switch as fast as possible. Because the slower you switch your behavior, the less intelligent you are. There's a difference between being smart and being intelligent. Smart means you know information, and to be honest, we're in 2024. Everyone is sophisticated right now. Every single buyer is sophisticated right now. So everybody is smart. When you're jumping on a call, everybody knows it's a sales call. And if they're not, you have to have the mindset as a closer to know that everyone is sophisticated enough that they don't want to be sold. Even myself, I don't want to be sold. But it's your ability to make sure that they're more intelligent than who they were yesterday. And intelligence is the ability to change your behavior, how quick you can change it based on new information. Because if I give you new information and you don't change your behavior, yeah, you're smart because you know new information, but you're not intelligent. There's a difference. Okay? The next passage. The tragedy of self-conscious being produces suffering, inevitable suffering. The suffering, in turn, motivates the desire for selfish, immediate gratification for expediency. But sacrifice and work serves far more effectively than short-term impulses, pleasures at keeping suffering at bay. However, tragedy itself, conceived of as the arbitrary harshness of society and nature, set against the vulnerability of the individual, is not the only and perhaps not even the primary source of suffering. There is also the problem of evil to consider. The world is set hard against us, of certainly, but man's inhumanity to man is something even worse. There's a reason why they're on the call in the first place. I like to say, regardless of what you think, we are here today based on our past decisions. And if you think we are in a realm, we are definitely in a realm of consequences. Yes, there's space, there's the sun, there's Mercury, there's Earth, there's Mars. But in terms of realms, we are in a realm of consequences. And the reason why people are on a call, or the reason why people are wanting to buy services, is they want change. And they can't do it themselves. They want to be a better version of themselves. That's why the self-development genre, or the niche, it's crazy, absolutely crazy booming market. People want to be a better version of themselves. People want to be a 2.0 version of themselves. Why? The world is full of suffering. Even if you're rich, even if you're sophisticated, you are suffering based on your insecurities. Type A rich people have insecurities, the fear of missing out. If you're not rich, you're suffering because you're poor. If you're too skinny, you can't gain weight. If you're too fat, you can't shed off the fat. Everyone has problems, hence why I truly believe we are in a realm of consequences. Each decision or each action you make has a rippling effect towards your past, present, and future. Another frame is I'm here as a listening person. I'm here as your collaborator, not as your opponent. So this is where your line of questioning is going to be extremely important because your job is to not give advice whatsoever. Your job is to be so strong with your active listening skills and to be on their side to work with their problem. Because if you give them advice, you are robbing them from their story and you're robbing them from achieving their own problems. Because ultimately, they're going to even spit out the answer. Why? Because your job is to make them sell themselves. Because if you can make sure that they can sell themselves, you're already halfway there in terms of closing the deal. So fear building. Fear building enough pain and ammo against them to make change before it's too late, especially with type A's. Don't ever underestimate a destructive power of sin of omission. What does that mean? Brushing off the small problems, brushing off anything that they think isn't irrelevant or important. Because give it 3 months, 6 months, those time periods go by really quick. We're in June right now. I mean, yesterday was a new year. Tomorrow will be a new year. So make sure you do not underestimate the power of small mistakes, because small mistakes are left unattended to, and once they build up, that's essentially how a big mistake happens without even realizing it. Starting with solutions, not no. To specify the problem is to admit that it exists. A lot of people are solution-based or outcome-based. We should be working backwards if you are going through that way. But if we are working linearly, we must acknowledge the problem first and to actually admit that you actually have a problem. Because if you don't admit it and you're smoke screening it or you're hiding behind something, then we don't even acknowledge it yet. As long as it exists, we gotta call it out. Okay? So if a prospect gives you one word or two worded answers, you gotta call it out. Because to specify the problem is to allow yourself to know what you want. Okay? And then you will precisely and cleanly when you don't get it, and that will hurt sharply and specifically. But you will learn something from that and use what you learn in the future. And the alternative to that single sharp pain is the dull ache of continued hopelessness and vague failure and the sense that precious time is slipping by. That's the virtual slap in the face. That's when someone calls you out. Because that's when it hurts. And when it hurts, you don't want it to happen again. When it's a dull ache, it's dull for a reason. And it aches for a reason. It's subtle. It creeps up on you slowly until it turns into chronic pain. Chronic, more than 7 days, 3 months, 1 year. Chronic is a time measurement of how long something goes for. Chronic can also be forever, but it creeps up. Okay? So we got to really specify what the problem is and challenge the prospect. Why aren't you specifically telling me what the problem is? We got to really specify it, because once we can specify it, we can literally build a massive gap to where they are right now to where they want to go. and then question whether or not they can do it by themselves, or if it is easier for them to do it by themselves. Because while you are failing to define success and thereby rendering it impossible, you are also refusing to define failure to yourself. So that if and when you fail, you won't notice and it won't hurt. Okay? It's your job as a closer to define both, to define the pain points, to make it land. Because if you cannot define the pain points and if it doesn't land, you are not defining the failure. It's not a virtual slap in the face. You literally need to slap them in the face virtually, respectfully, in order for them to understand where they are at. And that just builds a gap to make them understand that they're actually pretty far from where they want to get to. But that won't work. You cannot be fooled so easily unless you have gone very far down the road. You will instead carry with you a continual sense of disappointment in your own being, and the self-contempt that comes along with that, and the increasing hatred for the world and all that generates or degenerates. Time doesn't reveal all, it kills all. Okay? So it is in a closer's best interest to advise and to support the prospect. A lot of people want to be buying their time back, especially when people want money. It's not that they want money, it's what it gives them access to. And if it gives them access to more time, that's why people want money. When people become rich, they're paying $500 for a burger or for a nanny or for a personal chef because it buys them back time, not because they want delicious food as much as it gives them the delicious food and the um, gourmet food. $500 buys their time back. And if their time is worth $500 or even more, they're willing to pay for it. All right, we'll go to analogies. So making the gap larger, aka increasing the pain. So if you guys know the Sleeping Beauty story, essentially what the story entails is that a king and a queen birth a daughter or a princess, and they're super protective. They coddle their kid to the point where they're not giving permission for the kid to have access to the world. And the world is random and full of chaos. And the parents are doing as much as they can to protect their daughter from the world because the world is a dark, dangerous place. Okay? And we use this analogy, or I'd use this analogy in the sense of them being comfortable, them staying in the couch, scrolling through their social media feed, doom scrolling. If all you know is that you're stuck in your couch being comfortable with your 9 to 5 and you're not exposing yourself to what the harsh reality is, then you can stay there. That sounds like a comfortable place to be in. You don't have to have this change. But if you want something greater for yourself, if you want a better life for yourself, you need to understand how dark and dangerous and harsh this journey is in order for you to achieve something better than sitting on a couch, something better than doom scrolling. Because those things are easy, and when they're easy, they're comfortable. But for you, if you want something hard, if you want something that a lot of people don't have, then you have to go through the hardship. Okay? So you've got to consider the circumstances. Start small. Have you tried taking full advantage of the opportunities offered to you? Are you working hard on your career or even your job? Or are you just letting bitterness and resentment hold you back and drag you down? Have you made peace with your brother? Are you treating your spouse and your children with dignity and respect? Do you have habits that are destroying your health and well-being? Are you truly shouldering your responsibilities? Have you said what you need to say to your friends and your family? Are there things you could do that you know you could do that would make things around you better? Have you cleaned up your life? Is there anything If the answer is no, here's something to try. Start to stop doing what you know to be wrong. Start stopping today. Challenge the prospect by identifying everything that's wrong in their life before they can put blame on anyone else. This is a good thing to pre-handle any partner objections or when they put blame onto other people. This builds courage, complete ownership, and accountability. Because a lot of people cannot be accountable for themselves. That's why when people buy gym membership and they stop, it's not because they don't, not it's not because they're lazy. Maybe it is, but most often than not, they're going by themselves. And you don't have anyone like a coach or a mentor that's telling you, "Hey, why aren't you here? Or why aren't you getting yourself better? Because you told me you want to get better." Having someone else make you accountable, especially if you're not accountable, because we all have these days where we don't want to get out of bed. If you're paying someone else to do it, then that's pretty much what people want to be buying for. Okay. So the next passage: thousands and thousands of years we thought it over, and we drew a conclusion. The successful among us delay gratification. The successful among us bargain with the future. A great idea begins to emerge, taking ever more clearly articulation form. In ever more clearly articulated stories. What's the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful? The successful sacrifice. Things get better as the successful practice their sacrifices. The question becomes increasingly precise and simultaneously broader. What is the greatest possible sacrifice for the greatest possible good? And the answer becomes increasingly deeper and profound. Again, you sacrifice in your discovery and your objection handling. Because one thing when people are coming for help is because they don't know that they're sacrificing enough or what they're sacrificing is even good or for the better of their future. So again, you can also push back and ask, are you even willing to delay short-term gratification or success? And even distractions, get rid of them. Are you willing to get rid of them to do whatever it takes for the long-term goal? Because ultimately, what the passage is referring to, success comes from those who sacrifice the right way, the hard way, and the best way. And those that don't are considered unsuccessful. And the difference between the two is because people take the easy route. If you sacrifice something easy, you will get easy outcomes and easy results. Okay? On the opposite end, if you sacrifice something hard, the bigger the return. He kills his brother, his own ideal, as Abel is everything Cain wishes to be. Okay. So for those who know the Cain and Abel story, Abel is the 2.0 version, best version of yourself, and Cain is the worst version of yourself. Cain is the version of yourself that makes the worst and the least best sacrifice, and Abel always makes the best sacrifice. So this is something you could use. So based on what I've gathered, you want these goals, which sound amazing, but this all sounds good on paper. Okay? So what makes you so different from everybody else that wants to achieve these goals? So again, you make them sell themselves. In objection handling, when they say they don't want to think about it or they want to say no because of fear, you just push back. And you just say, yeah, you're not saying no to me. You're just saying no to the 2.0 version of yourself or the version that could potentially become and have that future. You're saying no to that reality. And I'm just the soundboard because I'm not saying what you should be doing because you can say yes or no, but I'm just showing you what you're capable of doing. A lot of the times you've got to be pushing back, okay? Because there's two options. You can't be fat, you can't be skinny. You can't take the easy route and you can't take the hard route. You've got to pick one route, okay? But taking the easy way out or telling the truth are not merely no different choices. They are different pathways through life. They are utterly different ways of existing. You don't have to take this path. This is not supposed to be easy. The reason why it's not supposed to be easy is because you're challenging them to pay you so much more, heaps of money. That's why it's high ticket sales, to make a better life. Because you know if they pay in full, they're going to do whatever it takes to get that outcome or that result. They're going to do whatever it takes to get that money back if it's a return on investment offer. If you want these hefty goals, then you need to put in the work. Are you willing to step outside of your comfort zone to take more ownership in order to live that 2.0 version of yourself? Another passage from the book. The present can change the past, the future can change the present. So the present can change the past. We are not our failures, but we can learn from them. So we can learn right now in order not to be what our past are depicted by us. And that becomes what the future can become. We do have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, but we can set ourselves up with what we do in the present to change what we need and have a better future. So when you're remembering the past as well, you remember some parts of it and forget others. You have clear memories of some things that happen, but not others. Or potentially equal, most important, just in the present, you are aware of some aspects of your surroundings and are conscious of others. You categorize your experience, grouping the elements together and separating them from the rest. There is a mysterious arbitrariness of them all. So that passage is essentially why you ask, did something happen in your life to make you want more money, to make you want to lose weight, to want to have a better relationship? You want to be probing in why they want this change, and it's most likely because of a memory or something happened in the past that that is leading them to want to make a change. This is one of my favorite ones. Memory is a tool. I like this because I am definitely will be using this with my sales goals. Memory is the past guide to guide the future, to the future. If you remember something bad that happened and you can figure out why, then you're going to do whatever it takes to make that not happen ever again. So the moral of many stories, okay, chaos emerges out of in a household, bit by bit by bit. Everyone's unhappy, everyone doesn't say anything. Things are untidy, they get swept under the rug, but that's where the dragon is feasting on the crumbs. But no one still says nothing, okay? No one says anything because you negotiate your way out of it. Order is still under control, but it will review inadequacies in the face of the unexpected and threatening. Everyone is just whistling in the dark. Instead, communication would require admission of the terrible emotions: resentment, terror, loneliness, despair, jealousy, frustration, hatred, boredom. Moment by moment, it's easier to keep the peace. But one day, it will burst in a form that no one can ignore. It lifts the very household from its foundations. That's when an affair happens. It's when you go bankrupt. It's when you have your pants down your feet when there's an economic crisis. Everyone out there, 3,000 issues unveiled, which have been lied about, avoided, being rationalized. Hidden like an army of skeletons, some great horrific closet bursts forth like a flood, drowning everything. There's no ark or boat because no one built it, even though everyone felt the storm gathering. This is pretty much insecurities. And insecurities are everybody have insecurities. Insecurity about having the body that you wish to desire. The insecurity about not being the provider you want to become because of the fact that you cannot afford the finances to provide for your family or yourself, you just bring it out. Just say to them, small things do matter because they do add up. I mean, I can appreciate that you want to take a day to think about it, but ultimately, is the day you thinking about it, is that you just brushing it underneath the bed? Because ultimately, we haven't solved the problem yet if you just think about it for another day. And what is another day going to think about it? Because I don't think it's a day that you need to think about it. You've been thinking about it for the past 5 years. And my concern to you is that you have not realized that that the elephant in this room is that we have not solved the problem yet. Because if you do not take this opportunity, are you willing to turn around and say to yourself and your future goals and your 2.0 version that you're okay turning away from this, knowing that you believe in the program and you're capable of putting in the work? Because that's the most important part. Another analogy that you could bring up, a simple one, is we're trying to build a machine here. But can we appreciate that the machinery, if it malfunctions, and if it is left either not fixed or neither diagnosed, it will still function, but it won't function properly. So currently, you're earning money because you're at a 9 to 5, but we should see money as a machine, and we should see what you put in as fuel, which is time, and what you're getting out, which is money. Moving forward, are you willing to continue putting this petrol of time, your valuable time, in order to get the outcome? Because ultimately, we're not trying to fill up a car here to get to A to B. We're trying to fill up a plane to get to one place around the globe to another, or without having the thought of the expense of paying X amount to get there. So another thing is the God objection, or they want to pray about it. And this is an interesting one because you want to acknowledge the fact they are religious. Even if it's a lie, just acknowledge it and be like, look, I appreciate you being so open and transparent, but why don't you think this is not a sign from God, this call here? I mean, don't you acknowledge that? Are we actually asking for a wish from a genie? Because we are, regardless of what religion you are following, we're not asking for a favor. We're asking for guidance. So how do you know that God didn't even set this up in the first place and you push it back? Okay? Or what God wouldn't want someone like you to succeed? Are you that much of an ugly duckling? I mean, what kind of God would want that? Another analogy, I want to retire my parents, or another situation that you could do. You want to, obviously, people want to be retiring their parents, and that's a noble thing to do. But let's see if we can make it bigger. And so to me, it doesn't seem like you just want to be retiring your parents, which is a great thing as well. But especially if you said to me earlier on, you want to create that generational wealth. To me, it sounds like you're acknowledging the fact that you're in this interesting situation where you've given this opportunity where no one in this point in time on Earth has. I mean, is there X, Y, and Z opportunity 20 to 30 years ago? I mean, the internet only existed 30 years ago. So are we actually taking full advantage of this opportunity? Because let's be honest, is your parents going to truly understand what you're going through or what you're trying to do? Especially if they can't even use a phone. I mean, you can use that against them. Active listening is one of the most powerful skills a salesman or closer can have in their arsenal. And it becomes more and more powerful the more and more you practice it. So, another passage from the book. I decided instead to listen. I've learned not to steal my clients' problems from them. I don't want to be the redeemer of their story. I don't want their lives. So I asked her to tell me what she thought, and I listened. She talked a lot when we were finished and still didn't know if she had been raped or neither did I. Life is very complicated. So do not put assumptions into the story. Do not add words into their story. Don't give them advice. Ask better questions. Life is so unique and so random that you must tailor each call to each individual. Okay? It's like solving a Rubik's Cube. There are systems in place, but each problem isn't going to be exactly the same. This next part is about having the difficult conversations. Do you truly want to know the answer? Getting permission to talk about the hard conversations, not the weather. The weather is easy and no one cares because you can just go on Google to check the weather. The problem with asking yourself such a question is that you must truly want the answer. Only thing is, the problem with doing that is that you won't like the answer. And the reason why is a financial commitment or fear of changing your behaviors. That's the answer a lot of salespeople get stuck with, and a lot of prospects are going to answer because they're not going to like paying for the course. They're not going to like changing their current behavior patterns. No one wants to do those two things. All right, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is leadership skills. It's your job as a leader not to be nice, but to be honest. You can still be nice, but you got to make sure you back it up by truth and honesty, because being nice gets us nowhere. Active listening is everything, all the way down to the body language. This will allow you to go deep and have deeper conversations with what the problem is, because you've got to find the root of why they're saying what they're saying. Because generally, a lot of people aren't going to reveal the truth straight away from the first sentence. Okay? This is an exercise that is an interesting one. It helps build trust, and also it puts the pressure back onto the prospect. Okay? So you want to get a piece of paper or write down what you want, okay, and why you want it that bad, okay, and don't show it to them, okay. So I want you to write down the words you want inscribed on your soul, okay. Write that down, and this is a good way to pre-handle fear. When you get to the objection handling component, you want to ask them to look back at their own words that they inscribed into their soul, and you ask them, are we going backwards? Are we going back against that of what we wrote, or are we trying to go forwards? And that just puts the pressure back onto them, because you don't even know what the word is as the closer, but they know what the word is. And ultimately, even if they're lying, they're going to be lying to themselves. Okay? So this goes back to, why are they on the call in the first place? I mean, no one's forcing you to do this. Okay? You've dedicated an hour of your time. If there's a two-call process, even 20 minutes of your time to even talk to a stranger like me. So what is motivating you to jump on this call? Okay? How do we make sure that we put you in a position so that you do not go on another call again to talk about your finances or your health or your weight? How do you build yourself into someone whom you can rely on in the best of times and in the worst, in peace and in war? How do you build for yourself the kind of character that will not rely on itself in its suffering and misery, with all who dwells in hell? How do we do that? And as a closer, if you equip yourself with the frames, the analogies, and the conviction in your tone, you will get the sale. Thanks for listening.